Hello friends. Today we will be talking about addiction and how to get rid of habits that we are not pretty fond of, but we are kind of finding ourselves at their whims and mercy, and how to decode the pattern of addiction and get rid of it eventually. And we'll be using the ancient wisdom of Bhagwad Gita to understand the pattern and put it together with advanced neuropsychology and neuroscience to understand those patterns and how we can get rid of it in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So the first thing to understand is that habit is a constellation of repetitive patterns that has ingrained into the neuronal circuits. And what ingrains it to start with is the active thinking process. And the thinking process, when it sticks for a long duration of times, the mind will engage the senses and the mechanism of these muscles to attain that, what we call action. But it all starts with thinking. So if we have to get rid of addictions, be it alcoholism, be it gambling, be it anything that we are not pretty fond of, even getting back to a relationship that we were in the past and we don't want it to be in our lives, ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, whatnot, it's very important to not think about it. But the question is, how do we stop thinking about it? So there's where the ancient knowledge of Gita helps us understand the pattern and break it. So it all starts, as we said, is in the thought process. If you have your mind unengaged, if you are not doing something what you should be doing, the dharma, your religious duty, your karmic duty, anything that you're supposed to be doing, and you're tired, bored, you're not going to chase those things, then there's infiltration of these ideas reflexly by the limbic system, and the emotional amygdala kind of tries to get you back to it and will put all the neuronal circuits, sense organs in recruitment and to attain or procure that particular thing that we wanted to get. So Gita very clearly tells us, and there's a very good verse in chapter 3, which I'm going to quote here, and then translate it. The quote goes as, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsa, Sangesh Teshu Upajayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kamat Krodh Abhijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha sammoha smriti vibrima, smriti bhranshad buddhi nashad, buddhi nashad pranashyati. Now, what essentially it means is that dhyayato or dhyan or thinking repeatedly creates attachment. And attachment leads to lust. And lust cannot just be the relationship between a man and a woman, persons of opposite sex. Lust can be for money. Lust can be for power. So it's a form of ambition that's gone wrong, a form of passion that has got misdirected. That's what lust is about. So when the lust or this power or whatever the internal desire is there is very strong, it overrides your cognitive capacity, thinking capacity. So lust, when it's met, wants more of the same thing. And that's the definition of addiction. You want more and more of the same substrate to create the same high, because every time the receptors are getting down-regulated, so a higher substrate or ligand is required to bind to the receptor to create the same effect, or euphoria, or the dopamine squirting in the brain. So it's the met lust that creates greed, and when it's unmet, it creates anger. So the 3 doors to hell that Gita says, lust, anger, and greed, all start with lust. So lust is where the material mode of passion manifests itself initially, and then it will branch out, whether it's met, which is greed pathway, or unmet, which is the frustration and anger pathway. No matter whether your attachment, and this is excessive attachment, we're not talking about a general attachment. This is an attachment that is disrupting your life, your job, your relationships, your whatnot. So this profound attachment is going to create delusion. Now, what is delusion? DSM-5 will tell us delusion is a fixed firm belief that is contrary to the presented evidence. So no matter how much of evidence you present, like today we have the problem with global warming, with what people, certain section of the society still doesn't believe it's a real thing. Very similar situation. No matter how much of evidence scientists and rationality will present to you, they would still continue to go in their narrow, bigoted thought processes. And that's what creates delusion. And obviously, it's something which can become a personality trait if it sticks for long periods of time. And that's why personality disorders are hard to treat. I mean, you can treat anxiety, depression, mood disorders, bipolarity. You cannot treat personality disorders with any dose of SSRIs because they are ingrained in the neuronal circuits, not just with the neurotransmitters. Anyways, so basically, the cycle is called TALAGD. Let's remember that sequence again. Starts with thinking, goes to attachment. Attachment creates lust. Lust, when unmet, becomes anger. When met, becomes greed. Regardless whether it's anger or greed, it creates delusion. And delusion will lead to bewilderment of memory and loss of intelligence and regression of the neocortex. So the whole point was balancing Shreya and Priya. Shreya, what is good for you, and Priya, what is pleasant to you. We want things which are good to us all the time, and that's why we want that gulp of alcohol or this real quick 200-kilometer speed going Porsche ride, because that creates that thrill and venture. Very damaging, can be destructive, but we are shutting off our neocortex and letting hippocampus and amygdala, letting the limbic system drive us. And whenever Priya, which is what is pleasurable to you, versus Shreya, what is good to you, whenever Priya dominates Shreya, the instant gratification is going to create long-term damage. So very important to balance these two out and remember to do things which are creating delayed gratification. So for teenagers, college kids, very important to study hard today so that you can get your Porsche tomorrow. Very important for you to put in the hard labor and not go for instant gratification. Curb the desire for instant gratification by not thinking about it. So the million-dollar question, how do we stop thinking about it? To stop thinking about it is very hard, and the most easy, effective way to do it is to start thinking about something else. Now, how do we do that? Well, if you are a student, if you are educated person with a job, make sure that you are busy. Remain always busy, never have free time, never get bored. There's nothing worse than getting bored. I mean, boredom is ranking right there with anger and greed, because if you're bored, the worst decisions in your life are going to happen. So keep yourself engaged, and engaged in profitable activities, engaged in Satvik activities that are going to create a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Now, because the mind is a very high functioning operating software, so it always needs some input and stimulus to keep itself engaged. And if you're not keeping it engaged, the default is go to the limbic system, the emotions. Oh, I want that person, I want alcohol, I want some cigarettes, I want something to make me feel better right here, right now. Because that's what the limbic system has, the sense organs, sight, smell, see, touch. And if you are not feeding these senses, then it gets angry and it wants more and more of it. So if you displace it, so displace the bad thoughts with the good thoughts. And the other thing that you have to do is what we call AEIED. IED not as in improvised explosive devices, but as in imminent extreme desire. So you have to do AEIED, which is absolute extinction of imminent extreme desire. So what does that mean? It means you trick your brain. So say you wanted to have that ice cream and then you just went to Dairy Queen and then you just put the order in, and when you slipped your hand in the pocket, you don't have the wallet with you, so they won't give you the ice cream. So you are just like not going to have the ice cream. So that's what is abnegation of imminent extreme desire. You do it purposefully. You go to places and don't have the resources to get what you wanted to get in the first place, and that's the way to kind of shoot the limbic system and figuratively and help you get what you want to get in life. So friends, going back again to curb the addiction, the three most important things. First is remembering the sequence and working on the sequence. TALAGD, thinking, attachment, lust, anger, greed, delusion. Kill the pathway by changing the T, which is thought processes. Second, never be bored. Always find something which is engaging and profitable and causing long-term gains. Getting Shreya, what is good for you versus Preya, as said in Katha Upanishad. And the third thing is always wanting to remember that there's 3 conveyor belts on which the life is working. The Satvik, Rajasic, and Tamasic. The Rajasic is the passion pathway, and on that one, either you can think about good desires. Nothing wrong with desires, but you need to get the right desires. You get the good desires, long-term gains, and not the short-term gains. Hopefully this video was useful. Please leave behind comments if you would like. Thanks for watching the video today.